Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Beast Mysteries. Have you guys ever heard of Port Chatham, Alaska? Recently, a subscriber reached out to me in an email and asked if I've ever looked into the Bigfoot encounters and lore of Port Chatham, Alaska. And I've also recently seen a lot of posts about it online, like on Facebook and on all the social media platforms. And I'm pretty sure I've actually seen Port Chatham featured on a network TV show, but to be honest, I haven't really looked into it at all. It doesn't, however, take a lot of digging to see that Port Chatham, Alaska is shrouded in mystery and horror. And there's plenty of missing person stories, as well as stories of body parts washing up on the shores, and of course you have plenty of standard visual Bigfoot encounters and reports to go along with it. When there's a location that has all these horrific stories of people going missing and vanishing, like into thin air, as well as countless reports of Sasquatch, it's really easy to put two and two together. Now, Port Chatham is a bay on the southern coast of Alaska, not too far south, kind of southwest of Anchorage. But the bay town in Port Chatham is called Portlock. And this town was once a thriving fishing community that was home to a cannery. Essentially, the business of the entire settlement was fishing and canning said fish. And with this being said, it's worth noting that Portlock had an official population of only 31. So when I say thriving fishing community, I mean it's more of just a little village. And that was, the way they made their living. It's safe to assume that everyone that lived there knew each other. And there wasn't really any strangers. And when there was strangers, everyone knew about it. But I guess as the story goes, there were so many crazy Bigfoot sightings and also mysterious disappearances that occurred that by 1950, 1951, the whole town just packed up and left. Or I should say the whole village of 31 people packed up and left. Very weird, very creepy. This really reminds me of a place here in Alberta near Nordegg. There's an abandoned ghost town called Mountain Park. And if you're familiar with the Rocky Mountains here in Alberta and the Nordegg area and, the mining town of Catamount, you've probably heard of or driven through this Mountain Park area. And it's a place where back in the 50s, everyone up and left. And it didn't have to do with Bigfoot. It was, economical reasons why everyone packed up and left. Had to do with the mining in the area. But everyone up and left and the whole town was abandoned. And actually they dismantled the whole town, leaving nothing but the foundations. And I made a video about that recently because there was actually a Bigfoot encounter, a very crazy Bigfoot encounter that happened there, where these, townspeople actually caught one of these Bigfoot creatures inside a barn. And rumor has it that they killed it and buried it somewhere out in those hills. So that is an old town as well that was abandoned back, in the early 50s. It's just something that happened, when nothing was going on in a town, people would just leave. They would follow the money. Wherever they could make a living, that's where they went. So I don't know what the truth is behind this Port Chatham area, but I do know, it is well known if you go online, if you do some research, that a lot of crazy, weird things happened in Port Chatham. People going missing, dismembered bodies showing up, floating up on shore of lakes, and it's very reminiscent actually of the encounters in the Nahanni Valley in the Northwest Territories. I've made multiple videos about that, where headless bodies would, float up along shore of the river, and the rumor was that these, cannibal giants were doing it. People were going missing. Now it is worth noting that back in the day, in these areas, in these remote wilderness areas, things were a lot different. It was kind of like the Wild West, You could get away with things a lot easier than you could nowadays. And like I said, these are small towns, small communities. If you didn't like someone, it wouldn't take a lot of effort to get rid of them and to get away with it. So I'm sure a lot of these old ghost towns had lots of tales of, people disappearing, people getting murdered, and, the reasons to people getting murdered is whatever. People have their reasons for doing that. But back in the day, it was like the Wild West. And to get away with something like that was a lot easier. People back in those days were also more desperate than they are now. It was harder to make a living, and they lived a hard life, and they lived in a really remote area. So, I'm sure quarrels and arguments and disputes happened quite often. I'm not saying that this is the reason why this town packed up and left and why so many people were disappearing, but it happened. And, it kind of makes me wonder, when I say so many people disappeared out of a village of only 31, I wonder what the actual numbers are on that. How many people actually vanished. But you do hear lots of reports, too, of actual Bigfoot creatures being seen and described, that fit the description of Bigfoot. So when you take those encounters and take the stories of people missing with, dismembered limbs, it is really easy to make it up in your mind that Bigfoot is responsible for all of this weirdness. But anyways, I'm going to dig a lot deeper into this Port Chatham stuff to see what the actual facts are and to find some specific tales from that area to share with you guys. I have to say I'm kind of skeptical. Just because I kind of just started looking into it. And, there is a lot of lore and stories out there, but there's no real proof that any of it is true. The only thing that you can find out for sure is that people did go missing and people died. But as to what actually killed them, it's still up in the air. But I'm going to do my best to, find some actual information for you guys and some facts. So with that being said, I do have a couple stories here to share with you guys from Alaska. They're not from this Port Chatham area, but they're interesting nonetheless. So without further ado, hope you guys enjoy these Sasquatch tales from Alaska. Fall of 1992. A friend and I were driving back to Fairbanks from Anchorage. I was driving her truck, a 1980 Dodge D50. These trucks sit very low to the ground. It was late at night and we were just about to the tourist area of the Denali Park. It wasn't winter yet. Just before a corner, my lights hit something sitting on the yellow line in the middle of the road. The lights to this truck were grossly out of adjustment, so they were pointing right at the thing. It was sitting in the middle of the road with its legs pulled up to its chest and its arms folded over its knees. Its head was between its arms looking down to the ground. It had long human-like hair. At first I thought it was an orangutan. Then I thought to myself, what would an orangutan be doing in the middle of nowhere in Alaska? I've lived here almost all my life and there is no animal like this one. I thought to myself, the only way that could have been an orangutan is if there's a circus out here. I knew that was not a possibility in such a remote area. I drove right next to it and I was at its level. If I had been going slow, I could have touched it easily. I was freaked out and thought I must be seeing things. Maybe I was tired. My friend saw it too, though, although neither one of us said a word until we reached the gas station in the town of Healy just past Denali. She said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "I thought I was seeing things." This spooked us so bad, we didn't even say anything to each other about it until we were around people. We've talked about this and still agree that we saw this thing. We both have decided not to bring it up because no one believes it anyway. Why I feel this is so unusual is there's no animal native to Alaska that could resemble this thing in any way. We have bears, moose, caribou, porcupine, rabbits, but none of these animals have knees or long reddish colored hair. I don't know how to explain it, and I've given up trying to because nobody believes it. They think you're joking. I don't want to be harassed by any nuts. I just want to share my genuine incident in case others have seen it. February 2004. This incident happened last night just after 11 p.m. My daughter was home alone. She lives with a relative who was out of town. She called me at 11:22 p.m. She was terrified. She said she could hear something walking back and forth by her bedroom window. She also said she looked out the window when she first heard it and saw something big and black and really big. She described the thing to have been about 3 to 4 feet above the bottom of the window. When I went down to look behind the house this morning, I stood by the window. I'm 5'4" and my eyes just reach the bottom of the window, so I figure this thing must have been 7 to 8 feet tall. We live in a small village of less than 500. There are a lot of bushes and trees in between the houses. Their house is close to the beach, and there's forests surrounding the town. Now, I've never known my daughter to be afraid of anything, but last night when I went to pick her up, she was shaking like a leaf. She was hysterical. It took me almost an hour to calm her down. I questioned her about what happened. She called me about 5 minutes after she first saw it. She was too scared to move. When I got down there, I would not look behind the house, but she was hiding in my relative's closet. She said it was walking back and forth right behind the house. She described the footsteps as sounding like something very large walking on 2 feet, kind of like stomping. My daughter is very down to earth, not one prone to dramatics. When I first went down there, I didn't really know what was going on, just that my daughter was scared spitless. But I would not look behind the house. When I went up to the house, my hair felt like it was standing on end, and I had goosebumps really bad. I was scared and didn't know why. I questioned a friend who lives next door to my daughter. She said she heard something, but wasn't too sure what it was, but she didn't check it out. She also heard her dog barking. There are quite a few other stories about sightings close to town. One was less than a mile away, but there have also been sightings on the Heidelberg Road by several people, too many to post.